U.S. authorities and potentially U.S. court are not convinced that the Mexicans have a very strong case, then it's very unlikely that she would be extradited.
New information in the Shanquella Robinson case as the FBI releases some of its files after a news media FOIA request. Robinson left her home in Charlotte to take a trip to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico with 5 friends in October 2022. She died on the trip. The FBI records reveal that on November 9th, a man showed up here to the FBI Charlotte field office to provide information about what he believed was Robinson's murder. Her friends have said Robinson died from alcohol poisoning after a night of heavy drinking, but the medical examiner in Cabo says she died from a broken neck.
Oh my God, you are not going to believe this. The feds are finally ready to make a move in the Shanquella Robinson murder case after almost 3 years. Can you believe it took them this long? I mean, newly released documents are basically proving what we all suspected. That Shanquella's so-called friends, the infamous Cabo 6, straight up unalived her during their trip to Cabo, Mexico back in 2022. This case has been dragging on forever, even though it started off moving pretty quickly after people on social media went absolutely wild with outrage when the horrifying details started coming out. These friends, and I'm using that term extremely loosely, have been fighting for their lives this whole time, swearing up and down they were innocent and never laid a finger on Shanquella. But honey, let me tell you, they have been lying through their teeth. Both eyewitness statements and the Fed's investigation prove the Cabo 6 were lying, and they allegedly unalived Shanquella. So what exactly did the Feds discover about this murder? And was this whole thing actually planned by the group before they even left the US for Mexico? Let's break this all the way down. This case has been going on for almost 3 years now, and it has been dragging on so badly that everybody thought it was going to end up as a cold case, or at least unresolved because of lack of evidence. There was a huge public outcry in the weeks after the murder, with people demanding justice, but as weeks turned into months and months into years, we heard less and less about the case. The public attention totally died down, and it seemed like the feds had completely forgotten about the case. Until now, that is. They just announced an update that promises to finally bring some justice for Shanquella Robinson. See, in the past couple of weeks, several journalists and news channels have been putting intense pressure on the feds for an update on the case. Starting from 2023, multiple people filed Freedom of Information Act requests asking for as much information as the feds were allowed to share without compromising the case. Well, the feds finally caved a couple of days ago and released 2 parts of documents related to the Shanquella Robinson investigation. And let me tell you, there was so much going on in this case that we weren't even aware of. But that's not all. The FBI files say agents searched Robinson's phone, but whatever they found is totally redacted. The files also state that in November 2022, authorities in Mexico told the FBI they needed to interview someone on the trip so they could get a temporary detention order. Mexican prosecutors eventually issued an arrest warrant, but no one was ever extradited. Like I said, the FBI files were heavily redacted, but according to someone in the know, the redacted parts allegedly point straight at the Cabo 6, with evidence suggesting they did allegedly murder Shanquella. So why did the feds suddenly decide to release these heavily redacted documents after all this time? Well, it looks like we have Shanquella's family to thank for that, because they have been fighting tooth and nail to get justice for their daughter. They recently filed another civil lawsuit against the feds, which finally made them sit up and decide to do something to appease the family. Shanquella Robinson, a 25-year-old from Charlotte, North Carolina, set off on what should have been an exciting, carefree getaway to Cabo, Mexico on October 28, 2022. The trip was supposedly planned as a birthday celebration for one of her friends. At least that's the story everybody was told. Shanquella left North Carolina in perfect health, full of life and excitement, just like anyone heading on vacation would be. She had no idea she would never make it back home. She wasn't traveling alone. She was with a group of 6 people who were supposed to be her friends: Malik Dyer, Winter Donovan, Elise Hyatt, Dejane Jackson, her so-called best friend, Khalil Cook, and Nazir Wiggins. The group had all come together for what should have been a fun, relaxing vacation, but as time would reveal, there was so much more happening beneath the surface. Notably, Nazir Wiggins didn't arrive with the rest of the group. He showed up a day later and has made it crystal clear that he had no idea what really happened before he got there. According to him, he was completely unaware of the events that led to Shanquella's sudden, tragic death. While the rest of the group remained quiet or gave conflicting accounts, Nazir insisted that by the time he arrived, things had already escalated escalated beyond anything he could have imagined.
So when I got there, she was in the game room. They told me she was not feeling good, so I instantly go to her, put on her side, get a bag, and all that. So I'm sitting right next to her the whole time. I was not there till the next day. I didn't see a fight. I didn't know it was a fight. I didn't know it was a video. I didn't know they did any harm, anything. I went in there and told it was alcohol poisoning, so that's what I helped her. That's what I helped her at. I didn't leave her side. I cut on soft music. Summer Walker rubbing her head till the nurse came in. It's wrong. And for y'all to be attacking me, an innocent soul, like, I'm really innocent as fuck. I went there to enjoy my birthday. Like, to enjoy my birthday and to really just goddamn have fun. I didn't have not 1 second of fun. And take one shot and then smoke one blunt and didn't do anything.
Now, from the outside looking in, this was just a group of young adults heading off on a luxurious trip to enjoy the sun, sand, and celebration. But as details emerged, it became painfully clear that what happened in Cabo was anything but a typical vacation. Shanquella Robinson walked into that villa with people she believed were her friends. Unfortunately, not everybody in that room had the same intentions. The morning after they arrived in Cabo, things took a turn that no one would have expected, at least not from the outside looking in. Shanquella's so-called best friend, Khalil Cook, was the first to reach out to her mother. He called to say that Shanquella wasn't feeling well and claimed she was suffering from alcohol poisoning. The way he described it, it sounded like she was just dealing with a bad hangover, something that wasn't exactly uncommon during a vacation with friends. Her mother didn't think too much of it at the time. After all, they were in Mexico, likely drinking and having fun, and Khalil had been a trusted family friend for years. There was no reason to question what he was saying, at least not yet. But as the hours passed, things took a far more serious turn. Khalil called her mother again, and this time, the situation had escalated dramatically. He informed her that medics had arrived at the villa in ambulances and were actively trying to resuscitate Shanquella. It was clear that whatever was happening was far worse than simply drinking too much. This kind of injury isn't something that just happens out of nowhere, and it certainly doesn't come from drinking too much. This revelation completely contradicted what Khalil had told her mother and raised even more questions about what really happened in that villa. With this new information, it was clear that the story Shanquella's so-called friends were telling wasn't just misleading, it was an outright lie. The truth was far worse than anyone could have initially realized, and the deeper people looked into the case, the more unsettling the details became. The spinal cord injury and atlas luxation weren't the only signs of trauma found on Shanquella's body. She had visible injuries that told a much darker story, one that her so-called friends had conveniently left out. There was a noticeable knot on her head, her lip was busted, and one of her eyes was swollen and bruised. These weren't the kind of injuries that just happened by accident. They were clear signs that she had been physically attacked. Then there was a detail from the autopsy report that made the situation even more heartbreaking. It stated that Shanquella had passed away approximately 15 minutes after sustaining her injuries. On paper, 15 minutes may not seem like a very long time, but when someone is in pain, every second feels like an eternity. The thought of her spending those final moments suffering, possibly confused and betrayed, is absolutely devastating, and this is where things start spiraling out of control for these so-called friends who had been trying to cover their tracks. Not long after the news of her death broke, a disturbing video surfaced online that completely shattered whatever lies they had been trying to sell. The footage showed Shanquella being viciously attacked by one of the very people she had traveled with, Dejanay Jackson. To call it a fight would be completely inaccurate because a fight suggests both people were engaging, but that wasn't what was happening here. Shanquella wasn't fighting back. She wasn't throwing punches or defending herself. She was being brutally attacked while completely defenseless. And the most disturbing part, the rest of her so-called friends just stood there watching. Not one of them stepped in to help her. Not one of them tried to stop Dejanay. Instead, they recorded it like it was entertainment. And then there was Khalil, the very person who called Shanquella's mother pretending to be concerned. Instead of stepping in, he had the audacity to say, "Quella, can you at least fight back?" As if she had a chance against the vicious beating she was enduring. The video changed everything. It exposed the truth for the world to see. Shanquella hadn't just gotten sick, and she hadn't died from alcohol poisoning. She had been brutally attacked. And the very people who were supposed to be her friends had not only allowed it to happen, but had also lied to cover it up. Now, I'm not going to share the video itself because, first of all, Shanquella wasn't wearing clothes, and second, it was just too horrific to watch. But what I will say is that she was hurt horribly bad. And what makes it even worse is that not a single one of her friends stepped in to help. Nobody tried to break it up, and nobody told Dejanay to stop. They just stood there like spectators, as if what was happening wasn't real, as if Shanquella wasn't someone they had called friend. And as disturbing as that video already was, additional reports suggest that Dejanay wasn't the only one who put her hands on Shanquella. It's now being claimed that Winter Donovan also played a role in the attack, meaning that Shanquella may have been ganged up on rather than just attacked by one person. Sources allege that Winter grabbed Shanquella by the neck and slammed her into a wall. And when you think about the injuries listed on her death certificate, a broken neck and spinal cord damage, this explanation starts to make a lot of sense. If true, this would mean that Dejanay's wasn't even the final blow. Reports claim that Winter's attack came after Dejanay had already beaten her, and that it was only after Winter's slam that Shanquella stopped moving altogether. The situation got even worse when a video went viral on social media showing her friends gathered behind her back at the resort, and it looked like they were plotting against her.
You gonna keep it hot, what? They, what Go said, they crew.
The one that's like mediocre is in my champion. I can't.
It gets even worse because the concierge at the resort confirmed that they treated her like an outcast. He said, "She seemed to not fit in with the others. When I introduced myself, she did not greet me or smile. She was indifferent, having nothing to do with the atmosphere of the celebration. She was out of place at that party." He also revealed what the Cabo 6 did after Shanquella was pronounced dead. He said, "I left that area and stayed outside the main entrance to give them space to mourn and grieve. Minutes later, I heard laughter. While they called her mother to inform her that Shanquella had passed away, they lied and said that she had died from alcohol poisoning."
So when they got back from the trip with her luggage, what did they tell you happened to your daughter?
That she got sick from drinking. It was alcohol.
Mexican authorities took the case very seriously, and they announced that they were treating it as a femicide. They also released a statement saying, "This case is fully clarified, and there is an arrest warrant issued for the crime of femicide to the detriment of the victim and against an alleged perpetrator, a friend of hers who is the direct aggressor. Actually, it wasn't a quarrel, but instead a direct aggression. We are carrying out all the pertinent procedures, such as the Interpol alert and the request of extradition to the United States of America. It's about 2 Americans, the victim and the culprit." But the U.S. authorities were kind of dragging their feet on this case, leading to Shanquella's family writing them an open letter where they openly named the suspect that the Mexican authorities had. The letter said, "The viral video showing Shanquella being beaten in the villa while naked by one of the 6 travel mates who was identified by the witness as Dejanay Jackson." The letter continues, "As a result of the investigation, a warrant was issued for Dejanay Jackson by Mexican law enforcement, one of the 6 travel mates who fled to the United States after Shanquella was pronounced dead. Ms. Jackson was identified as the perpetrator of the femicide against Shanquella Robinson, a homicide based on gender. If a United States citizen commits homicide in Mexico and returns back to the United States, as you are aware, they can face criminal charges in the United States under federal law or state law depending on the circumstances of the crime." Well, the next thing we knew, the FBI suddenly started moving real fast on the case, and then they released those heavily redacted documents, even though it had been almost 2 years since the news stations asked for them. Do you think the feds will finally make a move and get justice for Shanquella? Or do you think it's just smoke and mirrors? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and then check out this next video. Check.